Where is Amir Bashir this week? He's in Gujarat. What is he doing there? I don't know. You see, he didn't tell me. No one tells me anything.
When I first read about the Dandi March in school, I thought it had something to do with Gandhiji leading lots of people, all of whom were using staves, as a symbol of some sort. It was only in college that I understood the significance of the Dandi March. 3 years of history ensured that. What I'm doing this week is retracing the steps of the father of the nation on a journey he undertook 67 years ago. He simply walked the 300 odd kilometers from Ahmedabad to the tiny town of Dandi on the Gujarat coast. To do what? To make salt, preach Swadeshi, and raise the call for complete independence. If Gandhiji were to drop in on his old haunts today, the haphazard development of Ahmedabad would probably shock him. But the Sabarmati ashram, where he spent a lot of his time, would be like a homecoming. This is because it's very much the way it was back in the 30s. Step into his room and you can feel his presence. From 1915 to 1931, he spent most of his time here, making do with a few things and sleeping on the terrace even on the coldest nights. It was at Sabarmati that many leaders of the freedom movement began their careers, at the feet of the Mahatma. On March 9, 1930, a crowd of about 75,000 people gathered at Sabarmati to take a vow in Gandhiji's presence to work for complete independence, or Puran Swaraj. This was how the civil disobedience movement of the 30s was launched.
Gandhiji, in a letter to the then British Viceroy, wrote, "The British system seems to be designed to crush the very life out of the peasant. Even the salt he must use to live is so taxed as to make the burden fall heaviest on him. Salt," he said, "is as essential as air and water, and in India all the more essential to the hard-working, perspiring poor man and his beasts because of the tropical heat."
From this very spot on March 12, 1930, Gandhiji began his march. He was 61. With staff in hand and clad only in a dhoti, he set off at a blistering pace. There was no National Highway 8 linking Ahmedabad to Bombay in those days. I'm taking a lift. You ought to know by now that there's no way I can walk the entire distance. Pondering over Gandhiji's austere lifestyle, I couldn't help thinking that his greatness came simply from the fact that he always practiced what he preached. In fact, he never preached anything unless he had tried it first. A march was a march. There was no question of hitching a ride like I am. Gandhiji did not camp in this village. He just breezed through it. But that was enough for villagers to give up their government posts and join the march. In fact, some villagers who were mere boys in the 30s remember him quite well.
गांधी जी यहाँ से गुजरे थे? आप जब
हम तो
जवान
मानते हैं,
आप
अभी
जब
तक मानते हैं।
आप जब जवान थे उस वक्त गांधी जी को सब मानते थे।
हाँ, बहुत अच्छी थी।
आपको आजकल लगता है गांधी जी को लोग मानते हैं?
अभी 50% लगता है, 50% नहीं मानते।
It did affect the lives of all the people. And after that, throwing away the other clothes made at Manchester or anywhere else. And we started wearing the hand-spun khandi.
Many of the Mahatma's followers couldn't keep up with him. When they got tired, they needed a set of wheels, and this is the vehicle they used, the most widely used form of transport in those days. There was always a horse on standby for Gandhiji, but he never used it once.
Motilal Nehru initially was quite skeptical of the idea of breaking the salt laws. But when he met Gandhiji during the march, he was so influenced that he decided to give up his house, Anand Bhavan at Allahabad, and was later seen hawking salt illicitly.
Bharuch is only about 150 kilometers from the Sabarmati ashram. But by the time I got here, I was spooked, and I hadn't even covered half the distance yet. Bharuch is situated on the banks of the Narmada. This is one of the few places Gandhiji's feet got a respite.
Gandhiji would have saved time if he had the option of crossing the Narmada by bridge. But then there wasn't any at that time. I'm repeating history of sorts, or so I'd like to believe. But I must admit, my motives are not as lofty as his.
Halfway across the river, on an island, is the famous Kabir temple. It's a tourist delight, I was told. Well, don't believe everything you hear. In Gujarat, you have dhabas at half-kilometer intervals. Food is never a problem, though Gujaratis have a quirk when it comes to their cooking.
The strict vegetarianism of the Jains has contributed to Gujarat's traditional regional cuisine. Throughout the state, you can find the Gujarati version of the thali. It's an all-you-can-have vegetarian meal with an even greater variety of dishes than usual. It can, however, be overpoweringly sweet.
This is Navsari. It's where the Parsis first set foot on Indian soil when they adopted our country. There's an interesting story about their first encounter with the local Raja, whom they asked for permission to make Navsari their residence. The Raja sent them a pot of milk filled to the brim in response as an indication that Navsari was house full. The resourceful Parsis mixed sugar in the milk to show that they would mix with the locals the way sugar mixes with milk. The king was charmed and the Parsis stayed. This is where the grand old man of India, Dadabhai Naoroji, was born, and J.R.D. Tata too.
This is one of the oldest and biggest fire temples in India. Unfortunately, only Parsis are allowed inside.
There are times you can't help but walk in the Mahatma's footsteps because there's no other option. But you can always take a break now and then. After all, everyone can't be what the father of the nation was.
Gandhiji was known to walk very fast, and many of the satyagrahis could not keep pace with him. During the march, he averaged about 12 miles a day. The modern generation, he believed, was delicate, weak, and much pampered. And I couldn't agree more.
To pick up a pinch of salt in defiance of the mightiest colonial power of the time and thus become a criminal, that required imagination, courage and dignity. When on April 5th, 1930, 24 days after he had begun his march, Gandhiji picked up salt in Dandi, the nation was ready to answer his call.
The spark that this symbolic gesture ignited soon kindled the flames of a movement that engulfed the entire nation and finally succeeded in achieving what Gandhiji strove to accomplish at Dandi: total independence for the people of India.
You can tell by now that this journey was much more than a great escape. It was a pilgrimage to understand the significance of an event that was to have tumultuous consequences in the run-up to 1947. 50 years after independence, the teachings of the Mahatma are more relevant than ever before. If only we could see that.
Now, I can bet that most of you must either be in the middle of your holidays or must be going on one very soon right now. That's nice. Really nice. Because me, I just have to go back to work.